DC Comics' current Flash title is one of the best comics at the publisher today, and The Flash is currently embarking on an epic event style storyline called the 1 Minute War. The 1 Minute War sees a villainous group of DC characters called the Fraction who are looking to wage a war against Earth due to the lack of resources that they've been able to source throughout their world. Plus, these are individuals who have been able to tap into the speed force that the Flash characters use, but instead of doing it the traditional way from superpowers, the Fraction have used the platform of technology in order to harness the speed force. My name is Oracle Braddock, and today let's see if the Flash family of characters are able to repel the villainous Fraction in the latest chapter of the Flash 1 Minute War special. But before we get deeper into the video, I want to go ahead and encourage you to consider subscribing to the channel and hitting that like button if you enjoy our content. Next up, I want to go ahead and introduce the solicitation text that'll catch you up to speed on all the latest developments happening over in the Flash universe. A lot can happen in 60 seconds. As the Flash event 1 Minute War rages on, writer Jeremy Adams gives you further insights into the alien speedster that has invaded Central City and how the Flash family fights back. I want to introduce the Flash creative team, but this issue is full of different stories. We're going to start off with the first one called Past. This one is written by Jeremy Adams, illustrated by Fernando Pasarin. It's inked by Matt Ryan and Jason Paz, and it's colored by Matt Herms. We have letters from Rob Leigh and a gorgeous cover over from Serg Acuna that I'm actually going to go ahead and show off right now. Here's a look at that cover from Serg Acuna. Lately when I kick these reviews off, I always like talking a little bit about the cover itself. The one thing I really enjoy about this cover is how it kind of shows the different generations of Flash characters. This issue goes all the way from the past to the future. So it's great to see kind of so many generations of characters, introduced over on this cover. Big thanks to Adventures in Poor Taste for posting this preview of the issue. And let's start things off here by talking a little bit about the first story called Past. So I really liked several aspects about this story. One of my favorite parts about it was how it gave us more context on the Fraction characters. I think the Fraction characters are super interesting due to their ties with kind of like the DC Universe technology and, Speed Force and the like. So it's just cool to kind of get like their perspective. And again, I always love stories where we have kind of the nemesis characterized, but also the hero characterized as well. So I feel like we get just a little bit more kind of understanding of the Fraction characters. I really enjoyed kind of reading about Vel Anthro from House Sigma, as well as kind of like the Empress character in the issue as well. And I think they have a really kind of compelling backstory. The artwork from Fernando Pasarin in this chapter was among some of my favorite work in the issue. I love kind of the attention to detail that Pasarin takes in some of his characters, as well as all of the various technology that the Fraction are using here. Plus, this page that we're looking at right on the screen really took me back in the issue because I just thought it was laid out in such a kind of like coherent and appealing way over on the page, despite the fact that this is an issue filled with kind of wordy narration as opposed to dialogue that's a little bit more fluid. Still, if you're going to essentially lay a page out like this, that's a really great way to make the story more immersive. And plus, I think that this issue kind of leaves things off in a really interesting place too, because it happens to kind of, leave off right when the Flash's 1 Minute War is about to kick off. So I really appreciated all the context and insight behind the Fraction characters, and really thought DC did a great job kind of establishing, all these different characters. I really think that the writing from Jeremy Adams was a great way to kind of flesh out these characters and make them sympathetic. And the art from Pasarin is just so kind of detailed and was just magnificent to look at in the issue. Next up, let's talk about the second story in this issue. This is called The Present Part 1. This one is also written by Jeremy Adams. It's illustrated by Serg Acuna, colored by Rebecca Nalty, and also lettered by Rob Leigh. So this second story featured Avery Ho, the Flash of China, you know, also kind of at war with some of the Fraction characters. And to be honest, I think this was my least kind of, you know, immersed that I was in this issue as a whole. I think this is due to a couple reasons. I think the character of Avery Ho is really interesting in this issue. But I wish Avery just got more chance to kind of shine through or show like what makes her essentially so special as a Flash character. I feel like she's spending kind of most of this chapter just kind of barely struggling to survive. There's a few good kind of narration elements over from Jeremy Adams. I think the artwork from Serg Acuna in this issue is very expressive. I do wish it was more detailed in, you know, some certain cases. In particular, I think kind of like the enemies, the antagonists of this issue, I wish that they were kind of fleshed out with more details, you know, as much as Avery has in her costume, and just left me something to be desired over from that perspective. At the end of the day, though, this is still a perfectly kind of formidable story, and I do like Avery, and I think this is kind of a great kind of excuse to include her in, you know, the Flash's 1 Minute War storyline. So I was way more excited about this second or the third story in the issue called The Present Part 2. This one is also written by Jeremy Adams. We have art from Lisandro Estherren, colors from Patricio Delpeche. Hopefully I pronounced that right. And also we have letters over from Rob Leigh. This story in the issue was very immersive for me. The artwork from Lisandro Estherren was incredibly detailed, has really interesting like uses of perspective, and really brought me deep into the story. The part about this that I love in particular is the writers do not give away, you know, Jeremy Adams does not give away the premise of this story until the final couple pages. I don't want to spoil kind of the surprise DC character, tangentially related to the Flash universe, who shows up on the final page. But man, it really made the story for me, and it really kind of made like the violent aesthetic of the story kind of fleshed out really well. You know, in a book that features so many kind of like heroic characters, I think it is great for DC to go ahead and, you know, flesh out a Flash villain in this chapter. And the last and final story in the collection is called Chapter for the Future. This one is written by Jeremy Adams, illustrated by George Kambadais, colored by Matt Herms, and lettered by Rob Leigh. This story is so much fun. As you can imagine, it's a look into the future of what DC Comics could potentially look like. You know, I really do think that the biggest downside to kind of stories like this is the fact that we may never see them in continuity if DC continues to focus on, you know, characters like wallywest and barryallen and the Flash family. This story is really focused on like what the next and future generations of DC characters could look like. We get so many cool glimpses of the future. I love all of the different DC characters used throughout this issue. It's not just the Flash family. There's way more characters. I'll go ahead and spoil just one kind of cameo appearance because it really threw me for a loop. The Jurassic League, surprisingly enough, actually shows up in this last story. So you can really expect zany, off-the-wall characters at any given page in this chapter. But it was just so much fun to kind of read through, and really has me, you know, looking forward to somebody eventually trying to, you know, really accelerate the Flash and put Wally's kind of family in the driver's seat as opposed to Wally West himself, because we've gotten so many stories with this character. And gosh darn it, would I love it if the DC universe would just keep kind of iterating and evolving. The artwork in this issue from George Kambadais is just great. I love how kind of nimble and expressive Kambadais' line is. It is so much different. It's like the polar opposite from Fernando Pasarin. But I think that if you're telling a story with kind of younger characters, getting a more expressive artist is a great way to kind of differentiate this story from other chapters in the issue. So those are my overall thoughts over on the Flash 1 Minute War Special #1. I think this was a pretty great issue that touched on so many different aspects of the DC universe. And plus, we got to see a tantalizing glimpse of a future that we may never see, at least not in my lifetime. I really hope that I am wrong here. But the other chapters in the story also kind of fleshed out some of the interesting villains of the DC universe, like the surprise character that I'm not going to give up, who shows up in the third story. And plus, I love checking out kind of Avery Ho's storyline in the issue. And I really enjoyed getting to know the Fraction on a more sort of personal basis to have a deeper understanding of kind of the Flash as a whole. So I want to know from you, did you like this issue as much as I did? What are your thoughts on the Flash's 1 Minute War storyline as a whole so far? Thank you so much for checking out the video, and we will be back really soon with more excellent comic book content. We'll see you soon. Bye.